Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Podium Stories. Today, we have a very special guest in the building, somebody that I've wanted to talk to, have a conversation with for a couple of weeks after I saw an interview of him. And I'm happy that he's joining us today. His name is Andrew Alexander. He's the founder and CEO of Limitless Academy, an online education platform that teaches entrepreneurs how to build their business. He's also the author of Deconstructing Motivation and The Cure for Happiness, Timeless Secrets to a Stress-Free Life. He has built a digital publishing company from 0 to 1.3 million readers and traveled the world to help launch mission-driven companies into respective marketplaces. Andrew, thank you so much for being here.
Great to have you. Thank you.
I want to start with the early days, and we were just talking about this off camera about starting an entrepreneur house and traveling to see a mentor. So tell me about the early days of your entrepreneurship journey and how they shaped you for the future.
Definitely. So most of my life, I always wanted to be a police officer. So I started college when I studied criminal justice, switched to political science if I wanted to work with the FBI when I was older. But it was around 2009, I graduated college, got my master's degree, and I was once overqualified for the jobs I was once underqualified for. And the traditional path wasn't working out for me. I had no interest in business whatsoever at this point. Then I read a couple books on entrepreneurship. There was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Millionaire Fast Lane, and then 4 Hour Work Week.
I
then I learned that there's
2 books that have shaped a generation. Because for me, it was 4 Hour Work Week. But I've heard
definitely
Rich Dad, Poor Dad a lot as well as being like the inflection point. It's interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, it woke me up to like, okay, I can make money outside of a job. And in my mind, that is completely foreign because most of my friends who studied business in college, I assume they go to like a corporate job or something.
Right.
So it was around that time. I think the Millionaire Fast Lane was the most influential for me because they have an online community of lots of other similar types of people. I was reading stories of, I think it was 25 at the time, where people were living in Scottsdale, Arizona, where they had Ferraris, Lamborghinis, nice houses, and all the things that we wanted to chase at the time.
Right.
And I graduated college into the recession. I was living at my parents' house. I was broke, unemployed. And my first job out of college was at a Subway fast food restaurant, making minimum wage. And things weren't working out. So I read those books and started going down a different path right after I got my master's. And then one of the millionaires from that community, I connected with them on Facebook, made friends with one of his employees, and they said, if you're ever in Scottsdale, let's get lunch sometime. So probably about 6 months later, after trying to code different websites and just failing at little things, I drove 2,000 miles across the country, had $250 to my name. And then I actually made it there because I put my money in an Indian casino poker game and turned it to $2,000. Then the best piece of advice I got from the millionaire I had lunch with was stop gambling your money away, get a day job, and start hustling on the side, building your first business. So for the first couple of years, I was just jumping from idea to idea. If I saw like a get rich quick scheme on the internet, I'd jump on that and never really had the focus or the dedication to move forward with one thing. Then in October 2013, I moved in a house. We called it Project Scottsdale with 2 other aspiring entrepreneurs. One of them, he started a pet product company where he sold pet products through Facebook ads. Exactly like me, was working a graphic design job, and he just wanted to escape that. And within the first 3 months, he was making $45,000 per month with his business. Wow. My other roommate, who had pretty much no business experience, he was making $20,000 in the first week of his product launch. And seeing other people who were just like me, who had that success, something woke me up inside and said, it's possible for me. So we got this one millionaire mentor who kind of guided us along the way, and we were just keeping each other accountable. So we threw away all the televisions. We had whiteboards. Everything in the house is focused around 6 months of intense business work. And that's when I had a friend who told me to do digital magazine publishing, where he had success with that on the iPhone App Store. Mm-hmm. And my apps were rejected 16 times before the first one was approved.
Jesus.
And I wanted to give up every single time, but because I had that external accountability, that forced me to do things where we had weekly tasks where I handed a check for $100 to my roommate saying, if I don't get this other app submitted by the end of the week, you get to cash the check. So that was a lot of money at the time, and it pushed us along with those action steps each step of the way. And about 6 to 8 months later, I had my first $10,000 a month because the apps took off. I was getting probably 60 to 80,000 downloads of the magazine apps a couple months later, quit my job, and then just kind of lived a digital nomad life ever since. I studied NLP, hypnosis, And I started guiding other first-time entrepreneurs on the mindset and motivation to really push through those struggles I faced. So that's really where Limitless Academy is formed.
It's so interesting how I had the same experience. We need to see somebody doing it to believe that it's possible, right? I was raised, I'm a dual citizen, American, Spain, and I was raised in Barcelona. And my mom is an English teacher. She's a single mom. Like, I've never met an entrepreneur in my life until I was 17 and moved to America, right? For me,
Exactly.
I've never met nobody in my family has been one. No friends of mine, no fathers of my friends. So I never thought it was possible until I saw somebody my age doing it, right? So having that influx point of you saying that, it's interesting how that shaped you as well of, okay, if they can do it, I can do it.
Exactly. I think there's different levels. You see people who are successful, like Mark Cuban, for example, who's a billionaire, where you see them after the fact. Then you see other people where they kind of shared their stories. That's why like the 4-Hour Workweek was good, or Rich Dad Poor Dad, Millionaire Fast Lane, because through the works you could see the journey they went through. But when you see someone else just like you who's done it alongside of you, I think that's where real magic is, where especially with first-time entrepreneurs.
Because you can relate to them, right? And I think there's also a competitive aspect of, I have no excuse now because they can do
exactly.
it. And I want to ask you about the sense of motivation, right? Because you tell me that you're going from business to business, from business idea to business idea, until like you finally focus on one thing and go hard at that. Did you struggle with motivation, or was it just a patience problem of I want to make money right now, and you're chasing the grass is greener on the other side?
I definitely say it's a mix of both, where we wanted to make money right away. If we didn't see the success right away, then we wouldn't be motivated to continue. Where I think the core of it was not the lack of belief that we're on the right path. So the biggest thing was the motivation problem and sticking through with one thing for at least 6 months. That was the key factor, where it's like going to the gym. You go to the gym, you're a little bit out of shape, you work out for a couple of days, you don't see results. But in that instance, you could see other people, okay, if I continue on this path, I'll definitely have success. And the certainty was there. And when I was building my first app business, I didn't have the certainty it was going to take off. So it's like all the fears would come in. What if I waste 6 months of my life and nothing happens?
Right.
What if this? What if that? So I always like to reframe it in my mind. What if I get paralyzed or analysis paralysis and stay where I am right now, and I never develop the skills I need to move forward? So I kind of like hypnotize myself saying, okay, even if the worst case scenario unfolds, will I be in a better position than now? So learning how to develop the apps, how to produce content, how to hire freelance employees, things like that. So those are the biggest parts of keeping motivated.
So is that what you would recommend to somebody going through that process? Because I know myself, I went through that for a year, right? I was doing drop shipping, selling fucking basketball gear. Then I sold soccer jerseys on eBay, until I was like, I actually believe in my writing ability, that eventually became a ghostwriting business and an agency. But is that finding the certainty and something that you actually believe in, the first step for entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs going through a trial test?
It's hard because building that first business, I didn't have that certainty. It's kind of like running into the darkness, and I just didn't have it, but I still pushed forward. But like with what I'm doing now with Limitless Academy and my other businesses, I have the confidence that the actions will lead to the results, and I keep pushing through it. So the advice to myself back then is keep pushing forward. You will succeed, but at the same time, it's a balance, because what if you're going down the wrong path is a valuable fear versus if you give up too soon. So weighing those two things. So if people have some sort of confidence that they're going to go down the right path to success, I know a lot of people who do web design agencies. There's hundreds or thousands of other people that do this type of thing. So if you want to start that type of business, you have the certainty that if you keep persisting and you develop the skills, you'll get it. Where if you want to try something new, then maybe the certainty is not there. But in general, I think it's better to really just keep pushing forward into the darkness, even if you don't have the certainty.
Right, especially because in the early days, there's never a full certainty of this is going to work out, right? Like at least I didn't have it, and I think a lot of people struggle with that. I read on past interview of yours that you build a publishing business And then at one point, there's an algorithm update on the App Store, and that crippled the income for your business and put you in a tough position again. So how did you manage something that shifts your business completely? You have no control over, kind of like what it's going right now with COVID-19 in the world. How do you manage a situation like that where you have completely lost control, but it's affecting economically?
Definitely. There's one thing with the interview I didn't list. I'm part of a vegan startup business. We're a couple years into it. We're making good progress. So we're facing a situation similar to that with COVID-19 right now. And the way we're handling it now is kind of different than what I did back there. So start with the first part where, I built up the digital app company where I ranked a lot of apps on the App Store, first position in the magazine categories. And then they got rid of the Apple newsstand where all my traffic was coming from. So not only did my revenue go down, but at that point I was making a lot of money. I was traveling, just kind of getting a little bit reckless with my spending. So when the credit card bills were up, I had the money to pay it, it went down. But when the money crashed, I was facing debt as well. So that month, I just drove up the Pacific Coast Highway for a couple weeks on a trip from Phoenix, Arizona to Seattle. And I was renting out a place in Seattle and everything crashed. And then my debt was up and all the anxiety and everything built up was really built up all at once. And then I was rushing to the emergency room on 2 occasions because the anxiety is building up too much. And then I was getting heart palpitations and night sweats. And I just needed some form of stability to get back on track. So I moved out of Seattle, drove back to the East Coast to spend the holidays with my family. And after seeing 6 doctors, I didn't know it was stress at the time, but the final doctor said, it's stress. Here's a bottle of antidepressants. Take this. This will help you out. Then I was reading the side effects of the drug where it's worse than the symptoms. And I was like, all right, on one hand, I could take the pills. On the other hand, on the way back, I was driving through Boulder, Colorado. And somehow there, just all my stress went away. It's like the mountains, the outdoor nature. I had some friends there. And something about that city was really relaxing for me. And I just knew instead of taking drugs, I had to go back there. So I drove back. I went to a bunch of different meetup groups on mindfulness, meditation. I already studied a lot of neuro-linguistic programming, hypnosis at this point. And I had a mentor he's a psychotherapist, NLP practitioner, where he taught me something called the emotional freedom technique, where if you tap on certain points of your body while focusing on stress and anxiety, it instantly releases it just like pouring a cup of water out. So if I eventually turned that to a coaching practice, where if you look up EFT or emotional freedom technique on YouTube, I definitely suggest that, where I've worked with clients who have overwhelming amounts of anxiety and within 5 minutes and completely gone. So that emptied it out completely, mixed with being in nature, mindfulness, meditation. And at that point in my life, I learned how to reduce the stress from business. And I got heavily into the personal development. But at the same time, a lot of people in personal development circles, they have that complacency or the relaxation, but the motivation is gone. So at that point, it's kind of went on a journey where how do we balance being relaxed, being stress-free, and then putting the motivation together. But one thing I forgot to mention was just like how to balance that while you're growing a business. So the EFT and other rapid emotional release techniques, that helps in the moment. But in my experience, going through it the first time and facing all those things and having the determination to learn how to work through it yourself helps in the future. We're now middle of COVID-19. We're facing similar situations where our product's being produced in South America. We sell it in the United States. And there's so much uncertainty where what if the border shut down? What if this happens? What if that happens? But going through this, because I've been through it before, it's not as emotionally frustrating on me because I know there is another side to it. So
makes sense. And this is one of the reasons I really wanted to have this conversation with you, because I have struggled with mental health in my past. I had panic attacks before the business, and then I don't often talk about it much, but during the last 4 years running the business, it's also taken a toll on me personally, and it's something that I've embarked myself on a journey of how do we fight that, or how do we deal as entrepreneurs with stress, with anxiety, and how are we open with that as well, right? Because I think as entrepreneurs we try to hold it to ourselves versus trying to share and helping others with sharing our story. So tell me a bit more about when you're talking about getting heart palpitations and getting rushed to the emergency room. is there a point of time that you're like, this is not working out well for me and I need to make this change? Like, is that when the app store changes? How did that anxiety manifest for you? And how was your physical and mental reaction to the stress?
I think the thing was I let it build up without letting it out, just like you said, where with the tapping technique I talked about, that allows us to kind of like open up and release it. But other people have different ways of doing it. So if you're into fitness, maybe like a heavy exercise routine when you feel stressed. For the years after that, I did a lot of writing. I published a number of books where the process of writing, either I publish something or if it's more personal, I just write it, but I don't publish it. Just some type of channel where it's like, what's a good analogy? It's like a pressure cooker where it builds up, it builds up, it builds up. Then you finally find a way to let it out. You feel better. So even today, like in my personal life, I still face these type of struggles. But when I go to one of my proven methods for releasing the pressure, then I feel much better immediately. So it's something to go through. So it's individual. So some people it's singing, some people it's writing. Maybe you go to a gym, you have a punching bag, you hit that. Or if you just use it for determination and motivation for your business, some way to get a controlled release of the energy from inside of you. Where other people, they let it out of control, where it goes everywhere and they might take it out on their employees, team members, things like that. And that's not a healthy situation either.
I love that you say the writing part. That was one of the things that really helped me out back in the day when I was really struggling, and I would drive to Waffle House at 2 a.m. because it was the only place that was open, and just write all my thoughts, right? Because personally for me, it seems like my thoughts are really loud and then they start building up. And I related a lot to your explanation. And then writing is like throwing up all the thoughts, right? And letting your brain free again. You mentioned you mentioned meditation. Can you tell me a bit more about if you had experience with that, and how has that helped you along the journey?
Definitely. So there's traditional meditation where you're supposed to like sit down and just like clear your mind of thoughts and sit there for a long time. And I'm not patient enough to do that. Right. But there's different guided meditations. So there's one, it's by the founder of Mind Valley Academy. His name is Vishen. It's like a 15-minute meditation. It's on YouTube. It's like 15-minute something where you start like, you visualize yourself like in a bubble of white light. You picture your ideal day. You feel gratitude, things like that. So I know for lots of entrepreneurs, we have all those thoughts going on through our mind nonstop. And if traditional meditation isn't something we have the patience for, which a lot of us don't, then finding guided meditations, there's self-hypnosis recordings. So I go on audible.com. And I think Eric Brown Hypnosis is the one I use a lot. And one of them is a law of attraction type of meditation. I lay down at night. It's a 40-minute track. And then pretty much it takes you to deep relaxation. You visualize things and it just kind of gets you on point and makes you feel better.
And you mentioned, and this is something I definitely wanted to ask you, how when we get into self-development, there's a certain settlement, right? Like there's a lack of ambition, maybe, if you want to put it like that. So finding that balance between being okay with who you are and also being the ambitious as entrepreneur is probably hard. So can you talk to me a bit more about like, how do you fight those two opposite feelings?
Definitely. Give me a second to think about it. So I'll just use one of my books as an example. So when I was writing, my first book was I Am Not a Millionaire, Making a Shift from Failure to Financial Freedom, which kind of told my story from the first business. It's having the sense of purpose and like channeling the energy and the actions that you're doing regardless of the outcome, where having that sense of purpose allows us to not deal with the stresses of, okay, if I write the chapter of the book, I'm not expecting an outcome from it. And then how do we balance that with, we need to get results with the business? So if we're running like a Facebook ad campaign, we were running a big one in January where we hired someone, they put out an advertisement focusing on the task at hand, measure the results, don't expect anything. Because I think they say disappointment is a difference between expectations and experience. So
love that.
You expect something, but usually either you expect the worst or you just measure what's happening as feedback. So a lot of it has to do with the personal development belief is, okay, I'm here. My goal is here. We have to follow this journey down the pathway to get there. And a lot of people think it's okay. It's just like that, where you see those memes where it's like, you go here,
Yeah.
you go down, you crash into things. So my personal mindset of viewing this is, okay, the goal's here. I'm here. I'm trying to go down the path. Then something happens. I might wander off the path. Then I listen to the emotions. This is a big thing I've been wanting to say this for probably the last 10 minutes is when you have a constant pain or anxiety coming up in your life, especially with your business, and something keeps getting triggered, instead of blaming externally, listen to the emotions. What does it mean about me or the actions I'm taking? About why am I going off this path?
Mm.
So just a real practical example is if you keep using, Facebook ads and you target people who are 55 plus and nobody's clicking the link, then okay, you could be real frustrated. Okay, what does this mean? What are my frustrations leading me to do? Okay, why am I frustrated about this? Maybe I try different targeting. I know it's a basic example, but listening to your emotions, having the faith that is here, and then just kind of like knowing that you can get back on the path by adjusting your actions.
Right. How do you balance caring a lot about something, right? Like a business can be like our baby, and we want it to succeed, but also, like you said, don't letting your emotions drive your actions, right? So how do you balance? This is so important to me, but at the same time, the emotions are not going to be the driving forces behind my actions.
Yeah. So if you care so much about the specific business that you're in,
Yeah.
So I'll ask you directly. So like, what is the purpose behind you wanting to build a business? Like there's the action you do, then there's the purpose and like what it does for you. So what's the end result that you're looking for?
Yeah, for me, it's been always about freedom, right? It's been about being able to control what I do with my time, where I live, and the things that, and not letting someone drive my actions as well.
Definitely. So, and do you view that one path, the one business as your way to get the freedom?
I see it as the medium to achieve that. Yeah.
Definitely. So I know from my example with like Limitless Academy, that's the business I care the most about because it had such a profound impact on my life where
Right.
went from nothing. I traveled, I'm on 4 different continents. I traveled now and built multiple businesses. And I just want to help other people do the same thing, where that was always seen as my path to freedom in these years. But outside of Limitless Academy, I have the other businesses I'm working on. There's a vegan business. And then while I was traveling through South America, I found something that's a natural hangover solution where I didn't have any interest or passion for physical products like that, especially in that space. But let's say I'm working that, I'm building that, even if Limitless Academy doesn't reach the potential as quickly as I want, that could provide the freedom. So there's different paths to get to the same goal.
Right.
So if you're so focused on this one thing will provide me the freedom, then there's so much pressure on that one thing where just kind of open it up and see what other methods could take you there. For example, when you first messaged me, you're saying a podcast where now we have the video interview. And if this goes on social media, that might be the outlet. So something unexpected. So just keep pushing forward, detach from outcome, and just trust in the process that you will get there.
And there are other factors, right, about why like we care so much. For example, personally as well, my business is also my way to prove my self-worth, right? So like I always talk about how I tie my identity and my self-worth to the MRR, so how much money we're making each month. And I know it's not healthy, but realistically, and when I go to therapy, this is something that we are trying to like stay away from. But that's why also I think emotions can also get in the middle of the way when your identity is so tied down to your business. Have you found that for yourself as well, that can be something that happens with other entrepreneurs?
Definitely. So when you're talking about that, where your self-worth is kind of your motivating drive to keep pushing and moving forward, but it still causes you the pain and struggle there, right?
Right.
So I have one friend where he built a very successful company, but his motivation is proving everybody wrong. I know that's a big one. Like people said you could never do it. There's 2 types of motivating. There's moving away from pain and moving towards pleasure. So it's kind of personal development 101, where a lot of us at the beginning, we're motivated by pain. So that $100 check method where I handed to the friend, it's that pain that's pushing me to move forward. But if you find something that's so important to you that you'll move forward at like the pleasure you're running for and some type of positive motivation you're moving towards, that you'd rather go through any pain to get there, so you won't need kind of the pain behind you to push you forward. So if you take away that motivation that's causing you pain, then you'll be left with, okay, what's the point? There's no purpose. Nothing's pushing me. I'm complacent. So my first instance or suggestion there is find something so powerful that's not painful that you're moving towards. And the other one is kind of flow state, the process of enjoying putting things out, where if you're enjoying putting the interview, you don't have to prove any self-worth. You're just enjoying the process and you're following the right business practices to make it happen. Those two right there, I think that's the first step, because if you move the pain away, then motivation definitely goes down.
I love that. And I want to ask one last question before we wrap this up, because like I said, I want to be respectful of your time. If you were to talk to yourself, to Andrew, when you started the business, the first business, when you were trying to find what idea to pursue and consistently go after, what advice would you give yourself when it's 24, 25-year-old Andrew?
Definitely. So pick one clear vision that you want to move towards and go faster. Like, so much time was spent like reading all these books, watching all these YouTube videos, facing like being paralyzed by fears. And all of my bigger fears in life unfolded where I drove across the country. I ran out of money in a foreign country once, and it wasn't as bad as I expected in my personal experience.
Right.
And for the irrational fears, just move faster, choose one clear direction, keep going. When you see other people having success with other things, such as selling t-shirts on Facebook, focus on your mission, keep going forward. Find somebody who's done what you're doing already, and then follow their advice and ignore the advice of the friends and family who doubt you. So there's so many pieces of advice I want to give, but that's the main one. Focus on one thing, keep moving forward, and then just listen to people who've already done it before because they have the experience. And like, I had one mentor of mine many years ago, he said, put out one YouTube video a week of your best content completely for free on YouTube instead of turning into a paid course. I resisted it for years, and my YouTube channel was in the same position because I didn't listen to it. But he did it before. He has a 6-figure per year business, and now I'm doing it every single Thursday. I'm releasing a new YouTube video on my Limitless Academy channel. The first one I put up was email marketing tutorial for beginners. And my great plan was I'm going to buy advertisements for all the email marketing related keywords, get tens of thousands of views right away, went into Google AdWords Planner. I checked back a couple of days later. It got 2 impressions. Nobody clicked on my video, and I'm still down to like almost no views. But in this instance, I made the commitment to stick to every Thursday, put a video out, keep pushing forward, where maybe years in the future will pan out. If not, at least I tried. So don't give up when you face adversity.
I love that, Andrew. We'll put a link to that YouTube channel. What other ways do we have our listeners to reach out to you, communicate, Limitless, and your academy as well?
Definitely. They go to limitlessacademy.com. I have a free email newsletter, and then my email address is andrew@limitlessacademy.com. If anybody listening has any questions or things you're struggling with one-on-one, just send me an email and I'll be glad to help.
I appreciate that. And if you're listening, thank you so much for being here for one more episode. Feel free to share and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Appreciate it. Bye.